What is up, everybody? It's Friday, February 22nd. Let's talk PlayStation. So if you didn't already know, Sony has officially announced the PlayStation 4. It is a very real thing. It really is coming. They announced it Wednesday at their New York City event, and I did a 20-minute long recap video of the entire conference, all the games that were announced, all the features that were talked about. But of course, there were still a couple questions that we had about the system, and now it looks like Sony is clearing it up a little bit over these past few days. So let's jump right into it. Shuhei Yoshida, who is the head of first-party worldwide studios of Sony, he's been answering a couple questions about PS4. Big thing, of course, he has pretty much said PS4 is going to play used games. Calm down, everybody. And that's pretty much it. In an email conversation with Eurogamer, Shuhei basically said, yeah, PS4 can play used games. Of course it can. Which is good. I mean, I didn't think they were going to block used games anyway. I knew that was just a patent. Like, they weren't going to, enforce that or anything. They would really shoot themselves in the leg if they really did do something like that. So, used games. What's even cooler about this is Shuhei also confirmed that you do not need to be always online to play PS4 games, kind of like anti-piracy with what some PC games are doing nowadays. You don't have to be online all the time. Your PS4 can stay offline. You can play used games. It's completely transparent. You can do whatever you want. So if you remember with PS3, Sony was really trying to push 3D gaming, how all these games are 3D, and how you could buy a 3D, Sony display and get the glasses, and all these games had 3D support. Now Sony's actually shying away from 3D and kind of moving forward with 4K, but not 4K gaming. Shuhei basically said the PS4 does support 3D, although it's not going to be a major focus, and he said that the PS4 is going to support 4K photos and video, but not 4K video games. Ditching 3D is not really that big of a surprise. 3D is really not catching on. People are just not that excited about it. It's really not the next big thing, so no one really cares about it. In terms of 4K, it kind of makes sense that it's only photos and videos. 4K gaming is, it's really far off. I mean, that would be really, really tough to develop. It's just insane. That would not be possible right now, really. I mean, I'm sure it's possible, but that would just be really hard to pull off. I mean, that would take a lot of processing power to render that image and have it run smoothly. It's a lot of stuff to handle. So if you remember in my recap video, I was talking about that sensor bar, which I then later found out was actually the PS4i, and now Sony actually has talked more about it because they really didn't say much of anything during the conference. So from the way they're wording this, I guess every PS4 is going to ship with this camera, and it's basically the next generation Eye toy, or PlayStation Eye, if you remember that from PS3 and PS2. And the camera max resolution is 1280 by 800. It has 4 microphones, and it has actually 2 cameras, and one's going to basically detect your space, and then one's going to detect you, and it's going to have 3D and depth perception and all that sort of fancy stuff. Again, this is something they didn't really talk about much, so we kind of have to wait and see. So if you remember from the conference and my recap video, Sony basically said they wanted to get every PS4 game remote playable on PS Vita, and I kind of made the notion that it didn't seem like they were promising it to you. Kind of sounded like, oh, they're going to try to do it. But now Shuhei Yoshida is saying they are very serious about it. They want all these things to work day one. IGN's Colin Moriarty even asked Shuhei, what about Killzone and PSP? That never came to fruition. What about this? And Shuhei said this is completely different. They are completely serious about this because they invested all this money in Gaikai and this acquisition, and how they're really serious about cloud gaming and how this is a new platform launch and they're going to get this from the start. So he basically said right from day one they want every PS4 game remote playable on Vita. To even further that proof, Shuhei is actually asking developers that before they send their games out for certification, that they actually test their games on Vita to make sure it works. So, I don't know, man. There we go. Like I said before, this is huge. If Sony can get this right, the Vita might actually start being something more viable of a reason to get other than just Vita games. Every PS4 game remote playable on Vita, and if it works right, that could be incredible. So I know a lot of you guys were bummed that we didn't see a console or price, but it looks like Sony's kind of defending themselves on both fronts. One being that the console, Jack Tretton actually said basically they didn't have a design ready, they couldn't show it because they didn't necessarily have a final design yet, so they might show it at E3. So there's that. And then in terms of price, Shuhei actually said they're kind of still playing the field and kind of investigating it. So I guess basically what they're doing is kind of staying at the sidelines to see from a consumer standpoint what people want, and possibly even, I don't know if they're doing this, but maybe they want to look at Microsoft's console, see what that's priced at. I don't know. PS4 is still a long way from being released, so it makes sense that they're kind of hiding some details. So if you do not like the new controller and you were hoping that you could use a DualShock 3 on the PS4, looks like that is not going to happen. DualShock 3 is not supported on the PS4 but PlayStation Move is. This actually really surprised me. I kind of thought they would allow you to just use a DualShock 3, but then in retrospect, like the new controller really is completely different in the fact that it now has a touchpad and it has the light little bar at the top, and since games are going to make use of that, DualShock 3 does not feature that, so I guess that really wouldn't work out too well. And obviously, since Media Molecule was at the event showing off PlayStation Move, I guess we're still going to see some PlayStation Move stuff. So this one actually really surprised me. The PlayStation 4 is not going to support digital downloads. So downloaded PS1 games, downloaded PS2 games, downloaded PS3 games, downloaded PSN games like Journey or Flower, everything. No, your digital downloads will not be supported on the PS4. Again, this actually really surprised me because it's like they're ditching their whole PlayStation Store ecosystem of PS1, PS2, PS3, and PSN games, and it's digital. Like, why would you not be able to get that to work somehow? It's not like a disc where you gotta read it. I mean, I'm not a hardware developer, so I cannot really speak for it on their part, but it seems like something that it should work, but I guess it can't. Now, of course, this is a huge sort of uh-oh thing with the PS4, this is definitely going to deter people away from buying the system if all their digital downloads, not even disc-based, won't work on this new system. But again, Sony tried to step in and defend themselves a little bit, not so much promising like the Vita thing that they were doing, but they kind of said that they could do it. They said, with emulation or cloud services, they could try and get those digital downloads to work again. For this in particular, they definitely said that they were just thinking about it and just looking into it. This is not something they promised to you, so, and you kind of got to look at it this way. When you get a PS4, you're open to a new PlayStation Store and all your stuff. You still got to hold on to that PS3, even for digital stuff, and that's a huge bummer. I asked you guys to send me some PS4 questions, and here they are. Sean Williams, what games do you hope make a comeback on PS4? Mine are Crash, Jack, Medieval, and Spyro. Obviously, Jack. I mean, that's my favorite game series of all time. But, I mean, I would love to see everything come back. Why wouldn't I love to see all these games come back? And in terms of, which ones? Oh, God. Uncharted, God of War, like I said, man, all of them. I love games. Brian said, what feature of the PS4 has been revealed that you are most looking forward to? Multitasking. I love the fact that I will be able to jump in and out of stuff so quickly, just like a smartphone. Multitasking, I want that. Andrew said, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically, do you think the PS4 is a revolutionary step forward? It seems like they're just kind of correcting the problems with PS3. You make a good point. They did spend a lot of time talking about, how they were fixing their old problems. But, as a company, that's kind of what they have to do. They kind of have to convince you of what they did wrong and how they're going to do it better. I mean, to me at least, it's all about games. I mean, these are video game consoles, and I think the games speak for themselves. It's not about if the system's going to be revolutionary, but if the games are. That concludes this week's episode of Let's Talk PlayStation. I'm Ryan Benecki. Thank you for talking with me, and I'll see you next Friday.